All right. Looks like it's about showtime. This is going to be recorded, so you can actually you're going to be able to go back and check this out afterwards. There's a couple slides in here, like a wiring diagram. That might be something useful for anybody that's just getting into it. Might be something that they need to take a look at. But so anyways, my name is James Vladyka from Fish Hounds Outdoors Guide Service, located in Benson, Vermont. I'm one of the Navionics Marine Specialists. I'm fortunate enough to get to go around and talk to a lot of people. I get to map the lake and help create better maps for everyone when they're out boating, whether they're out fishing or touring, the kayaks, anything that has to do with being on the water. You know, the Navionics app is very beneficial for you. You can have it on your cell phone, you have it on your iPad, and if you have a fish finder, you can have it in that. So that's something that I do. And a bunch of us have got together to create these free webinars for you. And I tell you, I've been really enjoying watching some of the ones that some of my fellow people have done as well. Been learning a lot from them. So this is just going to be introductory to bow fishing. If you're already out there bow fishing, I'm not sure if you're going to get much more out of this, but if you've never done it before, it's kind of a brief overview. So with that being said, this is a pretty sweet setup right here. This is not my setup. This is a stock photo here, but you can see that's what it's all about. So we're going to start off with the boat setup. And basically, you know, you've seen that boat. That boat was set up really nice, but not everybody can afford to have that 20-foot boat that's got, excuse me, that has, you know, fully tricked out and has all the stuff on it. So there's basically, you know, just a few key components that make up what you need to be able to have a boat for bow fishing. And one is to have a decent area in the front where you can stand, whether it be a platform or in the bow of the boat. I've used my Lund with just the front of it to stand on the deck before, as well as the duck boat that we have all the platforms and stuff on. So you just need to have a nice place where you can stand comfortably, be safe, and shoot from that gets you up in the air a little bit. Another thing is you got to have a good lighting system, whether that be LED lights, it could be a lantern, but really the brighter the lights you have, the better for seeing in the water. And then you got to have a trolling motor, possibly. We've actually run on the big motor before. We have a 4-stroke trolling motor, and I've run with my 90, nice and slow, cruising when it's out in the deeper water. And we've had good luck with that as well. But, you know, most of the time we're using our trolling motors, whether it be a bow mount or one on the stern. That being said, so this kind of shows you a little bit, you know, here's your regular V bottom boat. It's a John boat. You know, probably not the most stable, but it's set up really good. If you stay in the front or stay back here, you could shoot as many fish and as big a fish as anybody can shoot out of the most expensive, well tricked out one. You just may not be completely as comfortable, and you got to be, you know, a little careful where you stand in that one. Down below, you're still got your entry level John boat, but you got your flat bottom boat. And what's nice about the flat bottom boat, obviously, is it's more stable. So you're really going to have a little bit more stability. You don't have to worry about if you're on the edge, the thing rocking. It really makes a difference if you're getting ready to shoot and somebody moves or you take a step and you drop down a little bit. It's hard enough as it is. So with that extra added movement, it's not that easy at all. Then if you look over here on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see there's some people out there, and these are boats that I dream of having. I by no means have one of these big fancy boats. We have our 20-foot boat, and it's got a platform, it's got some lights on it, and we shoot a lot of fish and have a lot of fun with it. But if you look on the top here, you see that one's got a fan on it, got extra rows of seating, tons of lights all the way around the front of it. So that thing, you stand up on that platform, and you're on top of the world looking down at a very well-lit lake in front of you. Down below is more something on the lines of what I have. Something that can be important, and not all boats have to have them, but these shooting rails are really nice. Although you have to be careful you don't hit your limbs or your bow on them, they are nice to just grab a hand on and to hold on to. You can lean against them. and just a little bit more safety factor there. We've had a few people step off the boat before, and it's a lot of fun for us to laugh at them, but it can be dangerous too. So this is basically just showing you, just like anything, we got to go to work, and whether we have a moped or we have a Lamborghini, they're both going to get us to work. One just may have more bells and whistles, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. Okay, so light options. As you've seen on the front of the boats, light is key here. The brighter and the more lights you have on the boat, the better it is to see. Sometimes you cruise upon these fish in the shallows, and they may be, they may be out a ways. If you can see them ahead of time, if you're going faster, you can slow down so you can have time for the shot. You can let whoever know, there's one right there. And the brighter and the more lit it up is in the front, it is the better for me. Sometimes you'll see fish will spook, but for the most part, light is king. So here's some of the options. I'm going to go over a few of them with you. Okay, LEDs. So LEDs are becoming very popular. Not everybody's using them, but a lot of the folks are using them. And one of the major factors of why LEDs are great is they draw really, really low current. You can run them off your deep cycle batteries in your boat. If you run in a 12 volt or a 24 volt system, they really don't use a lot. And the biggest thing is they're quiet. Some of those boats you see with all those lights on there, there's a generator running, right there behind you. So it can be pretty loud. If you're willing to spend the money, you can get, a really nice generator that's not that loud. But for the most part, most of us are running pretty loud generators. So there's a diagram here. This is a LED in parallel. So I'm not going to talk too much about this. If it's something you can pull back up, and you can see, here's a little rule of thumb, like 12 volts for 5 to 27 watt LEDs, runtime will be about 3 to 5 hours. At 24 volts for 5 to 27, runtime will be about 10 to 13 hours. And down below is a setup where you can see how to run these in parallel. And this just shows you your positive terminals and your negative terminals. And you'll come off your positive terminal and you'll go into your red to start with. And then from there, you'll run your black wire to your red wire, black wire to red, black to red, all the way. And then you bring your black wire back. And then these two batteries are connected where the negative and the positive terminals are connected together. This is the way that a lot of the trolling motors, if you got a 24 volt trolling motor system, you're running, two batteries here. So this is just something, if you're going to maybe set up your boat, you can go back and take a look at this. There's tons of stuff online. High pressure sodium lights. So high pressure sodium lights are, lightweight. They have excellent bulb life. They can be, kind of cast more of a yellow orange light, but they're extremely powerful and they penetrate the murky water. Where I'm from, especially right now on Lake Champlain, the water is kind of dirty. So being able to penetrate into that dirty water to see those fish is king. But one of the problems is they demand a lot more electricity than LEDs. But therefore, you take the good and the bad. Another option is halogen, and you'll see this on most of your boats. You're going to see halogen lights. One, they're really cheap. You can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or anything, and you can get some of these lights. You can really rig up your boat for a couple $100 with lights. But again, the bad part is they draw a lot. So you're going to need yourself a pretty, powerful generator to run these. Power source. So as I was talking about, generators and batteries. So generators are required for the HPSs, and the options are endless depending on your budget. Powerful generators are, what you need, and quiet is a bonus, but those are usually, you get yourself up into, $1,000 plus for a generator that's going to be quiet like that, like your Hondas and your other generators that are quiet. I know one of the generators I actually run my camper offer and stuff, is from Tractor Supply, and I think it's like 4,600 watts. That runs all the lights on my boat, but it's more loud than those quiet generators. I have a little Honda, and it purrs like a kitten, but the problem is it's not big enough to run more than 2 lights at a time. And as you can see, you really want a lot of light for being able to be in the front of the boat. Batteries, we're just using our deep cycle batteries. There's all different types of deep cycle batteries, but you get into some of your bigger ones. Obviously, the bigger the better, the longer the run time. And one of the biggest benefits from that is that it's just quiet. You don't have to worry about gas on your boat. You don't have to listen to it. You don't have to smell it. And it's quiet, so you can sneak up. Does it really affect the fish? I don't really think that it makes that much of a difference with spooking fish, the loud noise or not. But it can be a lot more peaceful out there shooting like that. You tend to be the people having fun, and hooting and hollering tends to be the loudest part of what's going on down there out on the lake. Let's see here. So trolling motors. Here's just a couple of stock photos that I just pulled up. A lot of these pictures I just pulled up off from Google Images for the sake of being easy with the presentation. Here's some Minn Kota motors. I have a motor guide on my boat. Whether it be some of the boats, they'll have right in the front, they'll take hand-driven one, and they'll run that so they can run it by their hand. It's nice. You can reach right out, and you can control it very easy. Others will run with a foot pedal. A foot pedal is nice, but by the end of the night running that thing, you're getting pretty tired. Some folks will actually sink it below the surface of their deck, so it's about level, so they're not constantly picking their foot up and turning that. And some boats are pretty tricked out, and you'll see they'll actually mount this pedal. I think you can see my cursor there. They'll actually mount this pedal down on the surface, and they'll have this rigged up so they can still run their bow mount, and they can run it by hand, but by using this this setup right here. So that's there's some really sweet boats out there. You can Google on the internet and see some of the setups that they have. Some even have their gear controls up here. They have it all wired electrically. But one thing I do want to say is, for trolling motors, whether it be a Minn Kota or you have a motor guide, you're gonna be in the shallow water. You're gonna be going through some brush. You're gonna be going through some weeds and stuff like that. And if you get something that has a low thrust, you're gonna get tangled up. And if you get tangled up, it's just the most annoying thing to have to keep reaching down there and untangling these weeds. There's actually a new thing that came out in the market that I'm going to be adding to mine. That's a cutter that actually is just a piece of, I wish I would have thought of it. Just one of those things that, somebody was smart and thought of it, but it's a little piece of metal that goes right here. And as it swings the weeds to it, instead of them winding up, it cuts them off. And it's fairly inexpensive, and it's just attached with like some 3M or whatever. I should put a link up here to this, but I didn't. I don't know why I missed the bar on that one. Sorry for that. But anyways, trolling motors, depends on what you use, but just make sure you have enough thrust to be able to get through the weeds and stuff, and you're not going to be constantly getting tangled, because that's going to take some of the fun out of it for you. Don't hesitate to run your big motor. If you have a 4-stroke or you have a 2-stroke that runs good, you can cruise. I mean, it's hard to go as slow as you really want to go, but don't think that you can't get out there and have a good time if you don't have a trolling motor on your boat, because we've run the big motor on the boat before. We've killed the batteries, and we didn't have any choice but to run it. All right, moving on here. So bow setups. Starting out with a crossbow setup, because crossbows have become more popular and more legal in a lot of states, and more folks are doing it. Plus, a lot of folks, maybe they get up there in age or have a shoulder injury, they can't pull back a regular bow. So just because you have maybe you're not able to use a regular bow doesn't mean that this sport isn't for you, and that's why I wanted to put this one first. AMS, pretty much if I want anything for bow fishing, I'm going to AMS. They have a great product. I've had a lot of luck with it. I haven't had really any issues. They stand behind all their products. They have a very great website that shows all kinds of what you need to do, how to get geared up, and they're there to help you. And their shipping's fast. In my local area, store Rack and Reel, they carry the AMS stuff. So if you're one of the guys that are on here right now, or you're going to see this from my local area, Rack and Reel's got all this stuff for you guys. You can go over there and they'll get you set up. Longbows recurve setup. So again, you don't have to have a compound bow. to do this. If you have a longbow, there's setups for you, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty rewarding too. You can shoot. I know there's many guys out there that can shoot fingers with a longbow just as good as some of us with the sights. So again, AMS makes a setup for that. There's other companies that make setups, and it can be fun just to get out there and do it with the longbows too. Bow setups. So what I'm showing here is you can go to AMS, and they make bows especially designed for bow fishing. So they have a whole line of bows. Plus, there's other companies out there that have a lot of different bows as well. But AMS has full setups that come like that. For me personally, I like shooting my Matthews. I got a Matthews switchback, and that's what I kill my deer with. That's what I kill some of my turkeys with. And I don't mind, taking it apart and switching it over when bow fishing season comes. I just like shooting it, and it's nice to not, put that bow away and only use it for 2 weeks of the year. So if that's the case, you can get a pretty inexpensive setup from AMS. I think it's around $150. You'll get like an arrow or two. This is the setup right here. This is where your line goes. This goes up. This is attaches to your bow, and here's the reel. And this thing that hangs down, which you kind of can't see it, it's kind of behind this here, but you can see my cursor right there. Where my cursor is, right below here is the little black strap that hangs down. And what that does is that allows you, after you shoot your bow, when you draw your bow back, there's nothing, constricting the line. The line can pull right out. So when you shoot, you need to be able to retrieve it. So you just basically holding your bow, you just reach up with your finger and squeeze that tight, and then you can reel on the reel. And when you're reeling on the reel, this just pushes a mechanism together to help throw the line, and the line will go into this tube right here. It also comes with a new rest for you. So that's why some of the folks would, want to go out and get their own bow fishing bow set up for that, so they don't have to switch all that stuff around. For me, I don't mind. I've actually been using my whisker biscuit on mine, though. So I used to switch over to this roller one, but now I've been leaving my whisker biscuit right on it, and I've had no problems shooting with it. Let's see here. Broadheads and arrows. So there's tons of different ones out in the market, just like with anything. Your typical arrow that you come is, entry level, like one that comes with the AMS kit, is going to look like this, and it's going to have these tips on it. And basically, what all this is a wire. And if you loosen up the broadhead right here on the top, you just loosen this up a little bit, and then this will flip. So if you shoot through a fish, obviously it needs to stay this way so it can't pull out of the fish. But once you retrieve your fish, you unscrew the top here, and you flip this forward so you can pull it out of the fish. So that's all it does. And a lot of them are set up that way, even some of your better tips. One thing I do notice about different broadheads for me is some of the better broadheads, like this one you see over here on the left, I noticed that when I'm shooting fish deeper, it actually stays more true. Some of the entry-level ones, it seems like they'll tend to, to shoot up. When you're shooting down, your arrow will come up once it hits into the water. And these ones just seem to punch a lot better, and they seem to go through the fish pretty good, too, if you're getting out there and you happen to be shooting any long shots. I got a question up here. I think I'm going to run this poll right now. Well, I got a few people, so I'm going to run this poll, and I'm going to launch it right now. You guys should be able to see it. And it's basically going to say, do you prefer daytime or nighttime hunting? And it's a multiple choice. So I'm launching it right now. Let's see here. Daytime versus nighttime. Looks like 33% daytime, 67% nighttime. And nobody said both, so it seems you guys seem to know what you want to do. I guess I say I'm going to end it so you guys can see it. I think you guys should be able to see that now. Share results. Yep, okay. So for me, I like to go out at night because, it's quiet. I just love being on the lake at night, for one. And it's really neat to actually, some of the stuff that you see, we're out there to shoot fish, but some of the nightlife that you see out there, some of the things you see in the water, just the turtles and all the just crazy different things you see at night with it all lit up, it's pretty cool. So I really, really like nighttime bow fishing. But then again, I do in the daytime chasing carp around the weeds. It's that can be a lot of fun too, and it's insane. We were in a bow fishing tournament and had a friend come out. He actually knew where the fish were, and he told us they're up here. And we went up north and we got into this deep water weed bed, and we would actually come into the weed bed and the carp would be laying there on top of the water. Well, they'd hear the boat and see the boat coming. At first, it wasn't so bad, but after we shot a couple, they started getting smart on us, and it's pretty insane. We'd come into the weeds, and we'd see the fish. Well, after they started getting spooked, they would actually cut to the shoreline, and they would try to go. They would follow inside the shoreline because the weeds. There was about a 5 to 8 foot barrier of weeds that, or where it wasn't any weeds on the shoreline, and they would actually go to that and they would cut around the backside, and it was almost like we were playing chase with these fish. So it was somebody's got a hand raised. This is something new for me. Let's see here. Click on that. I'm gonna look in the question or in the chat here, Tim, and see if you got a question in there. Can you go over to that chat where it says more, if you guys got that, and then click chat? You should be able to ask a question in there. Let's see, there's question and answers there. Yeah, there's no questions in there, so I'll go back to that chat. Can you see that, Tim? Okay. Oh, it was a mistake. Sorry. Okay, no problem. I was like, hey, somebody raised their hand. All right, okay, so let's see. We're going to stop sharing the poll results so we can get back here. And so anyways, it got to be a game with these fish. And, sometimes you think of fish as not, really knowing what's going on. But we would go up to these fish. They would shoot into the shoreline, and then they would race around. So I don't know if any of you ever did that thing where you're playing with the kids where you run around the coffee table or the dog or whatever, and you run one way and then you run back the other way. It got so we were actually doing with the fish. We'd run into them. They'd start to run their loop. We would change up and go around the backside, and we'd actually catch those fish coming out the back. So it was just a neat little story I figured I'd share with you guys. All right, moving on here. Let's see. Okay, tying a knot. So this is going to be, bear with me for this. This is something I'm trying to make these webinars a little better. So this is a YouTube link, and I thought tying the knot, I could show you some diagrams, but our friends over at AMS Bowfishing have a really good video that shows 2 different ways to tie on the knots. So I hope I can make this work. And what I'm going to do, bear with me, I'm going to actually click on this link here. And then I'm going to do a new share here. I'm going to share the desktop. And I think you guys are going to be able to hear and see this, I hope.
With the kickoff for the 2015 season, we're getting a lot of emails and phone messages about people asking how you tie the line to the AMS safety slide. So today I'm going to show you a couple knots that I use when I'm tying these to the slides. So the first one I use when I'm using a 200-pound Dacron line. So here you can see we've got our slide. On the one side, we've got a groove on there. On the other side, it's flat. So I'm going to come up one leg, and I want to bring that line up and then back down through on the other side. You can see how that line fits nice and snug in that little groove right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull about 6-7 inches of line out. So I've got a double line there. I'm going to walk that all the way up to the point. And I'm going to make a loop right around my finger with that line. And then I'm going to pull that line off of my finger. So here you can see we've got that loop now. I'm going to pull that loop over top of the point. And now I'm going to walk that all the way back down to the back of the arrow. When we hit the shock pad, I'm going to walk that all over top the slide, over top the shock pad. I'm going to walk that knot to the behind the knock. Pull it tight, and right there is how I tie the 200-pound Dacron line to the AMS safety slide. All right, so the next knot I'm going to show you here, I've got 350-pound fast flight line. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to double up the line. I'm going to make a loop around my finger. And I'm going to open that loop up on my finger and take the end of that line, come back through that loop, pull it nice and tight. So now you can see I've got a big loop here, doubled up line. Got my safety slide right here. On the bottom side of that leg, that hole, I'm going to come up through one side and then back down on the other side. Now when I get this far, you can see I've got this loop of line right here. Very simple now, just walk it back to the end of the knock, go over top the knock. I'm going to walk that all the way back up, over top the point, pull it tight, and you can see I've got a nice knot tied right to the AMS safety slide. The nice part about this knot here is, but when I get the arrow back off my line, simply just going to roll it over so my bottom side of my slide is up, and you can see we've got that little loop right here started. I'm going to pull that line, and I want to find the line that's closest to the point right here. So I grab that line, walk it down, over top the point, walk it back down to the knock, over top the knock. I'm going to pull on that, voila. There, my knot just came out on my slide without cutting on the line. So these are just a couple of knots that we use here at AMS Bow Fishing. I hope it helps you out and gets you back on the water shooting fish. Remember, from all of us at AMS Bow Fishing, aim low, think big.
Okay, let's see here. Go down to new share. We should be able to. Okay, so did that work out, guys? If somebody wants to go in the chat and tell me if that worked out loud and clear, that would be awesome. Because that's something new for me, just adding into the videos. So yeah, if anybody, Tim, can you find it in there, Tim? It worked. Good. Okay. Excellent. So I just thought that would be a lot easier to show that video versus me trying to show diagrams or trying to tie it here. It looks like there's a little bit of lag when I'm moving my hands and stuff around. I'm not sure if you guys see that or not too. But okay. So tying the knot. Okay. This is probably the most important thing out of everything here is where to shoot. And I tell you, the first time I ever went bow fishing, I came from, I've been shooting my bow since I was a little kid. I used to do 3D competitions, and I got some trophies, and I was a fairly good shot. And the first time I ever went out bow fishing, talk about being humbled. Oh, my Lord. Anybody that has ever gone bow fishing that, feels as if they're a halfway decent shot, pretty sure you get humbled the first few times you go out there trying to figure out where to aim on these fish. So if you ask anybody and they say where to aim, they say aim low, and that is correct. So what you see here in the diagram is, it shows you, here's your eye looking at the fish. The target is seen here, but the target is actually down here, so you have to aim low. And what it is light. The way light refracts, it actually makes it look like you're seeing a fish that is actually a lot lower than it is. And there is kind of a rule of thumb out there. I can't say for sure that this rule is spot on, but it does help. It definitely helps, and you can, kind of figure out when you get there. But the craziest part about bow fishing is there's so many variables when you go to shoot and where to aim. If that fish is right down below you, you may aim, a couple inches low and shoot down. If that fish is out 10 feet and on top of the surface, you may aim a couple inches low. But if that fish is a foot down underneath the water or 2 foot, it all changes, and every time you change any of those, it completely changes where you need to aim. So there's a rule that they got out there, and it's just kind of like something to go by. It's called the 10-4 rule. And what the 10-4 rule is if a fish is 10 feet away and 1 foot down below the surface, aim about 4 inches below the target. If you double either the 10 or the 1, then double the 4. So an example would be that if you, if you're out, you'd aim 8 inches low for a fish that was out 20 feet and down a foot, or a fish that was 10 feet away and down 2 feet. Another, they also say, aim about 6 inches low for every foot of depth. And if you look at a fish, aim 10 inches low. So you can see some of the stuff is all over the place, and it really does matter on where you are. It matters on what broadheads you're using, how high up in the air you are looking down on these fish, all these variables. So what you really need to do is you can, put this in the back of your head as a place to start, but you really need to figure out on your own where you need to aim. And how you do that is by lots and lots and lots of shots. So let's see here. Location, location, location. So finding fish, location is the key. If you don't have fish, you're not going to have any shots, and you're going to be out for a boat ride. So 3 things that kind of factor into that is what kind of fish are in the water. So what are you going to be targeting? So pick the body of water that you got. One of the easiest ways to to try to figure out what fish are in a body of water is go into the state's website, the Fish and Wildlife. A lot of times there's records in there, there's fish species. So you can go in there and you can kind of find out what's in there. Sometimes there's more information you can find out with vegetation and other things as well. But probably one of the easiest ways to find per body of water is to go into that state's local DNR website and find that body of water, and then you'll be able to see a species list that's in there, whether it be a carp or bowfin or gar or bullhead. Depends on what you're shooting, what's legal in your area. It could be on the ocean. Another place is to go to forums. Nowadays, there's just about a forum for everything out there, and there is plenty of bow fishing forums. So if you happen to be going to an area, you might want to sign on to a local forum and just shoot it out there. There's plenty of folks that are willing to share on there. Others are not, but don't hesitate to go in and ask a question and go into this body of water. Can anybody just give me any pointers? I don't want your hot spot, but can I have some pointers? And more than likely somebody's going to be on there, whether it be a mod or somebody that just happens to be helpful to give you some information. Another important thing is what time of the year is it? Is it the spring? Is it the fall? Is it warm? Is it cold? So that's another key factor into finding the fish. And then what is the water vegetation like? And again, the vegetation really depends on what time of the year is. If it's spring, stuff may be just growing. There might be small grass. If it's late in the season, you could have heavy thick weeds, or stuff could actually be starting to die. So that's really important. Place to start. So I would just encourage you, if you're going to go out and you're going to try bow fishing, you want to try to make it as easy for you to start as possible. And shallow water with good visibility will offer you the best shooting opportunities. You can see here, this is just a shallow bank, and there's a couple gars stacked up right there. And this is right from shore. This is actually shore fishing. If you go, there's some rivers and some tributaries, even on some of the lakes in your access areas. When the gar are spawning, they'll come into the culverts, the tubes, creek channels. They'll be pretty much anywhere. A lot of the times they'll be out sunning themselves. So when you're going to start out, I would definitely, try to be in some, semi-clear water if you can, in the shallows. Limit yourself to maybe, 3 foot or shallower, or 5 foot or shallower, where you can see, and work those weed beds and stuff. Moving on here, I'm going to probably go, I think it's fish specific. So carp spawns. So carp spawns are a blast. You can really shoot a lot of fish during a carp spawn, or shoot out a lot of fish, I should say. Carp spawns can be one of the best times for beginners, bow fishers, to start building their skills. Carp spawn occurs anywhere from late March to July, depending on your location and how warm it's getting and the water temperature. During the carp spawning periods, they move into shallow water and grass beds by the hundreds. They tend to stack up side by side, and their backs tend to be out of the water, their tails out of the water, so you can really see them really well. Early in the morning and late in the evening are typically the best feeding times for them. You can catch them, cruising along the edges of the weeds. You can catch them in the shallows. Remember in my little story I said that there's weeds, and then there's a little open space between the shoreline and the weeds. A lot of the times they'll actually go in there and they'll lay, and you know, you'll cruise in and see them. If you're lucky, they'll still be there. Sometimes you'll just notice, you'll see like a mud spot. If you're cruising into an area and you're seeing these mud spots, that means these fish are they're spooking on you. So you want to maybe be a little quieter, go a little slower, ease into these spots. One thing that's kind of a pain in the butt is when they do spook, even that clear water sometimes becomes muddy and it's harder for you to see them. So that's just something to think about when you're going after the carp. A lot of the times they like that if you can go back into like back bays where there's cattails and then there's weeds. Any place that really warms up, you'll tend to get them back in there. Gar spawns. So gar, I love shooting gar. Gar, I mean, we got some pretty big gar here in Lake Champlain, and it's a lot of fun. And a good part about shooting gar is you can actually eat the gar. A lot of people don't know that. They're kind of smelly. If you ever touched one, they kind of smell. They smell fishy and stuff. But they actually have two really nice fillets down their back, and and they taste pretty good. So, a lot of people ask, well, you're shooting all these fish, what are you doing with them and stuff? And that's pretty much one of the biggest things. That's like the question that everybody asks, well, if you're out there shooting fish, what are you doing with these fish? And it's pretty neat that with the gar, some people eat the carp too. I'm not a big fan of eating carp. The gar, though, the gar tastes pretty good if you do them. The problem is getting into their backs. Gar, you'll actually, if you can get into them where your arrow hole is, or if you can slice into them and make a cut using tin snips, metal shears, you can snip right up the back and then peel the skin away. And there's two perfectly boneless fillets right down the top of their back, right down in here. So I encourage you, if you think I'm crazy, you'd be very surprised. Give it a try sometime. Anyways, gar spawn works similar fashion. It occurs a little bit later though. The carp kind of come out earlier on. The gar, it's really starting to warm up. It's starting to become, late spring, early summer when the gar start to come out. In the gar, you can find them, in the shallows, just the same, cruising the weeds, looking for fish to eat, whether it be alewives or shad or whatever they happen to be in your body of water. But you can also find them right out over 15 feet of water, just cruising on the surface, sunning themselves. And the neat thing about gar is a lot of times when you find one, you find a lot. They swim in packs. They almost look like, brush piles out there when you find them. And another thing about gar is gar will move along as you're coming to them, but a lot of times you can see them. They're so big, you can see them. So whether it's daytime or nighttime, you can kind of stalk them. So if they swim away, you have a chance of getting them. Or sometimes carp, when they go, you might not see them. You may see them, you may not know it's the same one. But the gar, you can actually, chase them down and, maybe get multiple shots at them. So that's all. Thank you guys for attending. I hope this was informative. I appreciate those who took the time to take and watch this, and I appreciate all those that are maybe going to watch this at a later date. I'm gonna actually go up here to the chat and see if anybody has any questions real quick. If you have a question, don't hesitate to ask it here. I'll do my best. I may not have all the answers, but I will do my best or point you in the right direction. So I'm just going to give it a minute here just to see if anybody has a question. And if anybody's got a run right now, I just want to thank you very much for taking the time to watch these. Don't hesitate to go into the Navionics website and check out. There's tons and tons of these videos, and some of them are very, very detailed, whether it's using your electronics, fishing for species, boating, sailing, kayaking, scuba diving. There's all kinds of stuff out there, and the good folks took the time to make these out here for you. And if I'm sitting home at night, sometimes I'll just pull up one of them and take a look, and I've learned a ton off from these webinars. So they're free. They're out there for you to access. And I just want to thank all you guys, and I hope you have a great night.